and welcome to the C3 Method Podcast with your host, Robert Palenik. Our goal is to educate you on everything health and fitness related with a clear, concise, and customized approach. We want you to know what you need to know and how to apply it in a way that fits you best. Today's podcast number 2293, and the title is Caloric Cycling to Manage Diet Fatigue. I'm currently going through a diet. My goal is to get as shredded as I can this year. I've been dieting for 5 weeks and I lost 25 pounds. So I'm doing pretty well. I've hit the goals that I've been setting for myself. And the main goals that I'm tracking diet-wise is I'm paying attention to my daily caloric deficit with an intent to have a specific weekly total deficit, and then seeing what rate of weight loss does that deficit equate to. So the way in which I'm setting this up can be a little complex, so I'm going to skip some of the details. I'm going to share with you some numbers, but they're in reference to specific situations. So the quick version is, when I started the diet, I weighed 262.9 pounds. So I used just 260. I used the BMR calculator, which you can just go to calculator.net and then use their BMR calculator. And I then found out, okay, what is my BMR? Your BMR is your basal metabolic rate. That's how many calories you would burn just laying in bed with your eyes closed. That typically equates to about 70% of our total daily needs. The other 30% is related to us up and moving and our organs functioning and our eyes processing visual data. It's just normal body function. And then we also have digestive functions. When we eat food, there's energy we burn from the food, breaking down the food that we eat. That's called thermic effect of food. And then we have any kind of exercise activity on top of that. So that's kind of where the other 30% comes from. When people think of creating a caloric deficit, they often will calculate in exercise calories. I don't like doing that. Because the intensity in which somebody exercises is extremely variable from individual to individual. And then if they eat that day, assuming they're going to work out after work, but then they don't work out after work, all of a sudden their calories are off. And then, what do I do to replace that? And then if I have a big workout, like a leg day versus like just a shoulders and arms day, is that different? If I'm a hybrid trainer and I have running versus weight training and the weight for training was body weight versus weight loaded, is that different? And it just makes it way, way too complex. So what I like to do is take my BMR, understand it's going to be about 70% of my total daily needs. So I do my BMR and I multiply that or divide that, whatever the math gets me, to where it gives me my total amount. So for me, what the amount that I would have needed to maintain my body weight if I was sedentary was estimated at 3,440 calories. So I use that as a reference number. And now what I do is each day I eat in a deficit underneath 3,440. I know that if I were to eat 3,440 and exercise, the exercise would create a caloric deficit and I would lose some body fat. But I don't really want to rely on that. Like I said, it's unpredictable and it would be way too slow of progress. So what I'm doing is I'm using the 3,440 calories as a reference point. I'm then eating underneath that per day and getting to a weekly deficit. So let's say by the end of the week, I've accumulated a 6,000 calorie deficit across 7 days. So that was 6,000 calories across 7 days that I ate underneath the 3,440 calories per day. If at the end of the week I'm at a 6,000 calorie deficit and that leads to 3.5 pounds of loss, well, if that's the rate of loss I like, then the next week I aim for another 6,000 calorie deficit. If I want to lose more, I'll aim for a greater deficit. If doing the 6,000 calorie deficit was insane, I felt like crap, I had no energy and it was miserable, maybe I'll bring that down and aim for only like a 5,000 or 4,000, something that's more manageable if I felt like the experience wasn't manageable. So what I do then is I'm going to keep that reference of 3,440 calories the whole diet. Even though as I lose weight, my maintenance calories would change, all I have to realize is, okay, at the end of the week, the first time I did a 6,000 calorie deficit, it equated to X amount loss. And maybe it worked again in week 2, then week 3, then week 4. Then in week 5, all of a sudden I'm like, oh, you know what? Instead of losing 3.5 pounds, I only lost maybe 2.8. So maybe that 6,000 calorie deficit isn't giving me the same outcome as it did before. So if I want greater weight loss, I'm going to push to maybe 6,500 or 7,000. So I know that I have this known number of a weekly deficit that's getting me this now predictable rate of change in weight. But I know that as I weigh less, that rate of change is going to go less. So therefore I have to push my deficit up. This is, to me, a much easier process because all the numbers are staying relative to each other, and all I simply have to do is drive my deficit higher. If I can't eat any less, then I know I need to move more. So I would start to then pay attention to, okay, what has been my daily step count average? So if I'm averaging 35,000 steps across the whole week, and I don't want to bring my calories down anymore in what I'm eating, I'll now start tracking my step count and say, okay, if I want to lose more weight but I don't want to eat less, let me bump my weekly step count up to say 40,000 or 45,000. And then I'll see, okay, what impact did that make along with my predictable 6,000 calorie deficit to get the rate of weight change that I want. So maybe if I bump my step count up 10,000 a week, all of a sudden I'm back to the 3.5 pounds of weight loss that I maybe would have wanted to keep. So this gives me known elements that I can then play with over time. I really like this model because I have the least amount of things to track and it gives me the most consistency with how to modify what I am tracking. I do track daily protein. I have a minimum target. So as long as I hit that, I'm good. The rest of the calories can come from carbs and fats however I please. So that's basically the basic structure. Now, when we look at caloric cycling to manage diet fatigue, what that is in reference to is, let's say that I was aiming for 1,000 calorie deficit every single day, and I did that like forever on end. That can get kind of boring, and it can be a little bit maybe on the days I don't train. I actually train pretty much every day, but I wouldn't recommend that. So if you had days off and you didn't train, 1,000 calorie deficit might feel like, maybe I could have pushed a little more. Maybe I could have done 1,200 or 1,400. And then on the days you do train, 1,000 calorie deficit might feel awful. And you're like, it would have been nice to have more food so I could maintain better performance in my training. Well, if on the rest day I feel like I have too much food, on the training day I feel like I don't have enough, why don't I push and pull those numbers a little bit? So maybe on the rest day I push to 1,200 calorie deficit, and then on the workout day I only need an 800 calorie deficit. So it makes sense to cycle or to modulate our caloric deficits to better match our activities per day. And that can be in the gym activities or that can be life activities. So if my wife and I are going to go on a Saturday to Home Goods and Starbucks and Target and all that crazy stuff, and I know my step count's going to be over 10,000 steps for the day, maybe I want to pull more calories out on other days of the week to give myself less of a needed deficit on that super active day. This is a great way for us to modulate diet fatigue, and this is going to help us. There's a million benefits, but emotionally. So on the days when you feel overexerted and that makes you feel moody and agitated and miserable, by modulating our calories, we can mitigate that to where on the more strenuous days we have more food so we don't get as moody and miserable and we're not so much of a jerk to be around. Then also mental health, if you think of like motivation, discipline, we're going to be more motivated and more disciplined if we can modulate how miserable we feel each day. So that's a way to maintain longevity of the diet. Then we also have physical recovery. If I can eat more on the days I train more, eat less on the days I train less, that helps me better match my calorie needs. Therefore, I don't drive as high of a cortisol response. I can recover better between my workouts. I have better muscular health, less muscular fatigue. That's going to improve my performance in training. So there's a lot of physical benefits that we would have from modulating our calories. We also have metabolic recovery. If we're in a consistent deficit over time, our body looks for ways to only need the amount of calories that we consume. For example, if I were to take away like $500, well, let's say that I was going to take away $1,000 a month from your paycheck, and I did that every single month. That becomes predictable. You would then need to realize, okay, I'm going to spend a little bit less in this area, spend a little bit less on this, maybe do this like less often than what I've been doing, and I would figure out a way to now spend 1,000 less than I used to spend. Our body does the same thing with calorie allocation. The amount of calories that it gives to different processes in the body, which would be our metabolism, how many calories our body burns and uses each day. If we give it a known deficit, it starts to try to figure out how to not overspend that deficit. That's a downside because as it figures that out, we are burning less and less fat, and therefore our diet doesn't work as well. Whereas if we modulate the amount of deficit we have per day, the body can't adjust as well. So just like your paycheck, if I were to take out 1,000 this month, but only 200 the next month, but 2,000 the following month, you won't know how the hell to adjust, and that's going to be chaotic for you. But that chaos is actually what we want for the body. If the body doesn't know how to adjust, it ends up burning more body fat than what it really wants. That gets us leaner, which is what we want, and the process actually goes better. So there are a ton of benefits to caloric modulating, like caloric cycling. The reason why I'm avoiding saying cycling is it doesn't have to be set in stone. Like every Saturday I go up, every Wednesday I go down. You want to modulate it with what you're experiencing in your life. So if you have a super stressful day, eat a little more. If you have a less stressful day, then you can pull down a little bit to still hit that end goal at the end of the week, that target deficit that you might want. So allowing yourself the freedom to play with your calories per day, knowing as long as you get to that calorie deficit by the end of the week, then your goal is met. I really find this super beneficial for myself, but also for clients. The way in which I'm using this for myself now is I'm weighing in on Saturday. I weigh every day, but my official weigh-in and my end of the week deficit is always determined Saturday morning. The reason why is if I'm dieting successfully and I end up wanting to do like a men's physique show or something, the competition is going to be on a Saturday, so I would want to kind of just set that as like a good routine. Therefore, what happens is I know every Saturday I'm going to weigh in and I want to have my weight be really good. How I have my training structured is on Wednesdays, it has to do with my work structure. On Monday, I do all my client check-ins, get everybody up to date. Tuesday, I do all my social media content, and then just double check on client work. Wednesday, I have a day in which I can do a little more freedom with what I want to do. So I've been currently going up to Fitness Factory of Charlotte, which is a badass, amazing gym in Charlotte, North Carolina. And I'll do a big leg day session there because they have equipment I don't have at home. Specifically a leg extension. They have a couple good leg extensions, but the one I really like is a Strive, which is the older version of Prime Fitness leg extension. So I really like that. They have a machine adductor, which I really like to do to add width to my legs when viewed from the front. They have a seated hamstring curl. I have a lying hamstring curl at home, so I like to get that stimulus in. And then they have a lot of weird, fun variations of leg compound movements. They have an Arsenal pendulum squat, which I've been using and really like. They have a Medex Avenger leg press, which is a really cool piece that I'll throw in as well. So I like using that day to go up and do a big workout. I'm really prioritizing my legs because they're 50% of your body. So I like having a higher caloric allowance on Wednesdays. This means that I pull my deficit deeper on Mondays and Tuesdays. I have a very minimal deficit on Wednesday. I then pull my deficit back down deep on Thursday and Friday to then weigh in on Saturday. And if my weigh-in is good, I have a moderate deficit on Saturday, so that way I can do house chores and do stuff with Meredith and feel good. And then I'll usually pull my calories back down again on Sunday. We use Sunday Fun Day as more like a day to kind of be leisure. We try not to do too many activities and other things on Sunday. We use Saturday as our do a bunch of crap around the house kind of day. So that is how I currently structure my calories to balance my work demands, and then also how I want to structure my life with my wife and dog. So that's a little example as to how fun and variable and personal you can make all this stuff. So that way you can manage emotional health, mental health, physical health, metabolic health. It really can be this personalized, this free, assuming you have the individual elements in place and you're tracking everything as you should. So that is how I currently use caloric cycling to manage diet fatigue, diet stress, diet burnout, whatever terms you want to use. But I thought it'd be fun to share the benefits of caloric cycling and how it's actually like helpful and necessary, like to throw in. It actually makes everything more efficient, and then share a personal example of how I actually apply that in my life. Cool. If you would like help with any one-on-one coaching to set up this type of nutrition, or if you want help with training programs, anything at all, you can reach out on our website, which is www.c3method.com. The 3 is spelled out T-H-R-E-E, so C-T-H-R-E-E method.com. You can sign up for a consultation. I'll chit-chat with you, and we'll get things rolling and have some good time. So check that out if you want to sign up for the service and learn more about what we do. Awesome. And then if you like the podcast, make sure you share the podcast. The more people we share it with, the more people we can help. If you like the information we share in the podcast, you can find more from us on our social media channels. You can find us and follow us on Instagram and YouTube under the name C3 Method. As always, I hope this was helpful, and thank you for listening.